Welcome again to Doozer's shop. Got an update on the Brown & Sharp 13 Universal Cylindrical Grinder. Alright, I got the camera set down and aimed at the machine. So I'm going to talk to you right here about this. What I'm very excited about in the shop today is I got my, my digital readout encoder axis fixed. This thing, before I got it, it was damaged. Somebody had apparently lifted the table with the forklift or something and just ripped the guts out of this read head, and it came out of the long axis here, and it just destroyed it. But I was able to put it back together after 3 days of working on it in the shop. This is a SONY, and how a SONY works, it's a magnetic type encoder. And what it consists of is inside this this box here is a steel rod. It's 2 millimeters in diameter, 80 thousandths, and there's a magnetic pickup coil in the read head. 2 coils actually. It's a quadrature type encoder setup, magnetic encoder. And on the rod, the steel rod inside the axis here, I guess they magnetically encode it with a sine wave, almost like recording on a magnetic tape, like a cassette tape or what have you. And they record a sine wave on there. So initially when I got this whole housing, it was just tacoed, it was bent up. This read head was pulled right out of it, and it was just trashed. But what I kind of took it apart carefully, and I noticed how it worked. There was this coil on the end of these wires. It's a little coil, you know, about the size of this furrow on the pencil eraser, and the wires coming out, and the rod just went through the coil. And there was one of these little wires that was damaged. It was cut, and I stripped it, soldered it, and repaired it. And I used a little shrink tube and fixed it. And I took the rod and I pushed it through the coil while it was hooked up to the readout box, and it worked. The numbers changed, and it appeared to count up and count down. So I knew that the coil was okay. And the rod being, aside from the rod being bent, I straightened the rod, it worked. I straightened it out, and the ends I had to hammer flat and get the ends fixed up right. So anyways, I knew there was hope, and I just had to do some fixing. Now, the read head, you can see this is aluminum, this is just a cover. The actual guts that hold the coil behind it, and I'll show you when I go handheld a little bit later. The guts I made out of a piece of white nylon plastic, and because it was non-magnetic, I didn't know, I mean, I could have made it out of aluminum, I guess, but the original piece that had broken into like 5 pieces was zinc, cast zinc, and so I don't know, I had the nylon piece, so I said, I don't think I can go wrong with nylon, and the rod that goes through it, I mean, it's a nice lubricant, bushing type of material to use for the rod going through and to hold the coil. And like I said, the coil, it's about the size of this pencil eraser and ferrule, and the wires come out the bottom inside here. And I got a spring. It's cut out. The cross section of this nylon piece is like a letter Z. But I actually cut out a notch in the middle for the coil to be accepted in there. And to make sure that the coil stays, you know, with no lash in it, I got a coil spring, compression spring, on the one side. And to put that in there, I had to thread it for 1/4-20, and I use a 1/4-20 nylon bolt that I drilled the center out in that 80 thousandths diameter rod goes through the center of my bolt. So the coil spring loaded in there, biased to one side, so it doesn't have any lash or anything. This little aluminum it's like a little protrusion here. It goes back in there. That's to keep the wires from scraping. When I run it back and forth, it would scrape on here if I didn't have this pushing the wires and keeping them nested nicely down in the plastic nylon block. So I got a lot of time in this. I had the shop. I had tools everywhere. I had 1,000 tools all over. I broke out the gauge blocks for measuring and the pin gauges and the blocks and micrometers and depth mics and just everything. It was cool because, man, it's like, what are you doing in the shop? Oh, man, I got stuff. I'm really doing some cool stuff here. And we're making a mess and having fun. So I enjoyed it. So I got it all put back on. And so I got these little wires. And the really skinny wires, like I said, I think they're about 28 gauge. And they remind me of the same wires that go on the tone arm on a record player to the magnetic pickup for the needle. They're very small. They're kind of secured here. This outer coaxial braided sheath terminates in an eye connection, and it goes on a screw terminal back there. I got it grounded to the chassis, so that holds them from being too much damage pulled out. And I got this clamp here, and it kind of loops back here, and I got a clamp there. And it plugs into the main cable with this disconnect plug, which has got a screw bolt on there. And it kind of comes down the bottom of the machine to the readout box. But anyways, wanted to show you guys the update. Put a lot of work into this. It's working well. Let me go handheld, and I'll show you the box that this is all hooked up to, and we'll kind of show you that. All right. So there's the box. It's a Sony magnet scale LH10. I guess this is from the early 80s. But you can see, man, I got decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits there. So this thing is it's got some resolution to it. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. I'm gonna make a pedestal on the grinder to mount that box instead of just having it up on top of the toolbox. It's gonna be on the side. So yeah, very happy about that. Let me show you a little close up. Here we go. You can see that. There's the nylon piece, and it kind of Z's up into the slot of the encoder rail there. And let's say that aluminum piece just kind of clamps it, and it's part of the wire retention, so it doesn't rub when you're traversing the axis. Geez, maybe I can get you an upshot. Nah. Yeah, it's nothing to see. It just goes up inside the slot there of the channel. But, yep, pretty happy with that. And then, of course, my wire's just secure as it goes around back. But let me show you. It's got the other axis around back. It had a Y-axis also, and there was nothing wrong with that at all. That worked just fine. And it's interesting. The way that the encoder is attached there, you can't tell it's behind this, but it just kind of sticks in there, and there's two little squeeze pins, like a quick tearaway feature on this axis. So if it was on the front axis, and they lifted, the table off, I mean, it would have been fine. It would just come off, and there's a tearaway kind of 2 pins in there, actually 1 pin and a spring-loaded. But it makes me wonder if the machine, somebody like thought of that, like a quick takeaway axis, and they just ordered it. Oh, I know what they did. This axis should have been maybe installed on the front of the table, because the table axis should have been installed here, because this has got the tearaway encoder mount. Yeah. And when they got the mill, like, they ordered it proper, because maybe because this came from Kodak, and there's like probably at least 5 or 6 of these in Kodak. But when they put it on, I bet you they just didn't realize that the tearaway axis was meant for the grinder table, which you can just lift off, in the permanent axis should have gone on the y-axis. So I don't know. A good postulate to ponder. But let me show you the pieces of the broken encoder. I got them on the workbench over here. Let's see. All right. So this here is the piece that broke, and as you can see, the coil was trapped in between this piece and that piece, and it sat in here. And actually, there was a spring inside there that kept the coil located. But I mean, this thing, it was just broken. That's broken in 3 pieces. There's like a little shunt furrow there, and another shunt piece I didn't use because it works better without it. And this is the piece that goes on there, and that's the wire holder right there that used to fit in there. But with all these little itty bitty screws, and just some of these screws were bent, and I had to, you know, find new ones in my hardware collection of. Well, I save stuff, right? I got screws galore, and find the metric ones, and it took a 7mm wrench to adjust it, and just metric Allen, you know, because it's a SONY. But anyways, so yeah, those are the pieces of it. Just wanted to give you guys a quick video update. Ooh, more. These are more leftover screws from taking the whole machine apart, and I've replaced them with different, better hardware and stuff. But I save all this stuff because you never know when you're going to be needing it. But anyways, got a cold air gun, Vortex Hirsch tube. I'm going to be using that on the machine instead of coolant. So that takes compressed air and swirls it around and makes it cooler. It puts heat out the back and cool out the front. If you Google Hirsch tube or Vortex tube, you'll see it's kind of interesting how they work. I have the guard on, the vacuum guard. Yeah, this is, I'm going to use a shop vac dedicated to this machine, and just my stupid wrench there. And there's a side that goes on here that keeps it covered up. But I'm going to have a dedicated, like I say, shop vac for this machine. And I got one for the other side as well, left and a right vacuum guard assembly. And I think these are house made. I think maybe Kodak made it. This is all brazed together with copper brazing rod. It's kind of neat if you get, you know, underneath the black paint. But once again, this is all full of rubber dust because Kodak used this for grinding rubber rolls. So so that's kind of cool. Don't know what. Oh, I got my tray. I still got to finish. I got to put that on, and I'm going to make like a mud flap thingy for that. I'll show you guys once that's done. And I'll show for you guys that don't. This piece of foam. I just cut a piece of it's flexible foam to fill in that gap there. You can usually see the lead screw for the elevation, and it just keeps the dirt out of there. And if you want to adjust it, just, you know, pop the foam out, and you're good to go. So just wanted to make the video of the x-axis for the digital readout that I spent 3 days in the shop, and very happy that this thing is working. So yeah, I'm going to sign off for now, and thanks for watching the updates on the grinder, the Brown & Sharp 13. Until next time, Doozer Shop.